wonderful evening while we deliberate on some of the issues that has characterized some of the issues. Mr. Machi, good evening.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure having been on this platform.
Looking at the headlines in the last couple of days, there are issues that have dominated the landscape, and we'll be discussing a few out of the numerous issues that have characterized the Nigerian landscape. One of those issues includes REB probes police over missing 7.5 million stop Tinubu from clinching APC ticket. This was credited to an ex-minister. While we proceed in the conversation, you're going to know the ex-minister that made this comment. We're also going to look at guns alone can't stop security threats, the army. This statement was credited to the spokesperson of the Nigerian army. Moving away from there, going to Rivers State, where we'll look at the statement credited to the governor of Rivers State in person of Nyesom Wike. He said, Wike said send anti-grazing bill to Rivers State House of Assembly. Wike said to send anti-grazing bill to Rivers State House of Assembly. Last but not the least is one of the breaking news we had a few minutes ago, which carries the caption, girls arrested during NSAS protests gives birth in prison. Girl arrested during NSAS protests give birth in prison. So, Mr. Matthew, before we go into the headlines proper, let's look at the first of the headlines we discussed about, which says that reps, the members of the House of Representatives, want to probe the police over the missing 7.5 million naira recovered loot.
Be a check. It would have been a good development if you hear that the federal government withdrew crude account that is meant to purchase arms and ammunition.
Yes.
That the arms and ammunition are nowhere to be found, which suggests that it may either have been misappropriated by the former service chiefs who went into closed session. Meeting. So to that extent, know what transpired.
Yeah, but Mr. Matthew, some people have argued, because I've listened to some commentaries, that issues of national investigation, it dies natural death.
What you just said is just like a clever way of trying to sweep weighty allegation under the carpet. Why have I said so? Nigerian government, out of that total sum of $1 billion, paid $559 million for 12 Tucano jets. If you keep that in the public domain, what negative impact does it have on the Nigerian security? If the man who is supposed to buy armored car for the fight against insurgency embezzle the money, and you tell the public any implication on the war against insurgency?
Maybe sometimes they use those excuses to cover up.
That is why I'm saying that it is a clever way of trying to sweep weighty allegation under the carpet.
Let me read the statement categorically. The House of Representatives on Tuesday ordered the Nigerian police to disclose the whereabouts of the sum of $7.5 million, being part of $37.5 million recovered from the security agency in 2017 as proceeds of crime. Besides, the House panel also demanded for the details of $360 million recovered as bribery from 26 independent National Electoral Commission, that is INEC official, who conducted the 2019 governorship election in Rivers State. So it is not just about the $7.5 million alone that the House of Representatives is asking about.
In essence, it has to do with the money that is allegedly recovered by the police. I'm not saying it is not a good thing to do an investigation to unravel who and who may have may have taken bribe. But the problem we have in Nigeria is I do not see the rep or senate serious each time they say they want to do an investigation, judging by their antecedent, judging by their record. So for me, Except otherwise, they want to prove me wrong.
Which I don't think they will.
I don't think they will. But okay, the only time I've seen it, the only time I've seen seriousness on the part of Senate is the time when they investigated a Babachi Lawa.
Maybe because
and under the leadership of
interest, Saraki, which was an opposition to the then federal government.
As at that time, the Senate stood their ground and said this man had been indicted. It was because of their position that forced executive to institute a committee that was headed by Osibanjo as at that time, which eventually indicted a Babachi Lawa.
The point is, Babachi Lawa was not sentenced to prison. There was no court.
That is where I'm going.
So they just swept the case.
That is where I'm going. Perhaps because it did not have the endorsement of the executive. I think why the House of Rep or Senate, National Assembly generally may be handicapped is because most of this their move is not endorsed by the executive. That notwithstanding, they are doing their job. Because take for instance, if House of Rep, the relevant committee should indict an individual, it takes the prosecuting agency of federal government
controlled by
to bring that person to justice. And when the federal government when the executive is not forthcoming in discharging that responsibility, the case will die a natural death. And we have seen instances where that has happened.
But you can't take it away from this government because they openly, through Adams Oshiomhole, said for those that have committed one crime or the other, they are welcome back, their sins will be forgiven.
I think that statement was credited to the former chairman of APC.
Yeah, Adams Oshiomhole. So with you, is it really sounding as something different from what you're seeing from the president?
Whether somebody even echo it or not, the body language of the executive shows that they are not willing to prosecute any of their proponents. We have seen, there's one forum when Magu was the acting chairman of EFCC. Michael Zekeme was to speak in a forum. He asked Magu that if you want Nigerians to take you serious to be fighting corruption, go and dock Babachi Lawa. A challenge he never followed.
But Magu never did that.
So what are we saying? In essence, the government is not. Their fight against corruption for me is just a mantra. I've not seen the seriousness of this government to fight corruption.
Sorry, for those viewers at home who want to join in the conversation, who also want to give your insight and opinion to some of these conversations dominating the headlines, you can join us with the phone number 090-255-37142. 090-255-37142. Mr. Matthew, let me read a part of the report from the House of Representatives. He said, and I quote, "The agency," they are referring to the police, "also failed to explain to the panel led by Adejoro Adeogun, APC Ondo, how documents submitted before the committee claimed on March 10, 2017, separate amount of 4.198 million, 26 billion, 714 million, 224,195 kobo, and 3.85 billion were lodged by the police, but need not reflect in any accounts at the CBN." So now, the panel had the first case of 7.5 billion. The same panel is investigating the second case of about 360 million. Now, the panel is now bringing to the notice of the public of 4.19 million that never showed, 26 billion, almost 27 billion, then another 3.85 billion. If you check the statements of the House of Rep, is it possible to lodge that amount of money with the CBN and nothing reflected?
That's what I was trying to say earlier. You see, in a sane society, such allegation would have been investigated and everybody that is culpable will be tried to court and justice will prevail. But what I'm telling you is that watch what is going to happen. Before you know it,
as usual,
this case will
die in natural death.
Because it's not the first time, it's not the second time. As waiting as it is, we are not going to see the end of this. the thing is not going to come to the limelight, because what you understand is the money involved. For me, those house committees, once the people who are accused go to them, they will name their price, and once they name their price, they will be settled. Okay. I may be wrong, but let's watch what time because if in the time past we have seen a House of Rep committee, a Senate committee that have did an investigation that see the light of the day, then I will be following through and ensuring that they name who is involved and put pressure on the executive to do the needful and constitute another committee that eventually indicted the man. Subsequently, the man was fired, though the man had not been prosecuted
till now.
It's unfortunate.
So what is the hope of the corruption fight of this present administration?
I don't think this administration is fighting corruption. Perhaps maybe another administration that will come after this. But for me, from what I can see, this administration is not fighting any corruption. They are only using it as a mantra. We have seen instances, not one, not two, not three, where people have been accused, especially proponents of the government, people who work for the government.
There was a case between Kachuku and Baru. The letters that flight between one presidency, two accusations, no investigation.
We have seen instances. So for me, I think the executive should be serious, even for once. I don't know, when people say Mr. President has integrity, is known for anti-corruption. Let us see reflect in his lieutenants. Let us see reflect in people who are handling these anti-graft agencies. Look at how Magu, Almighty Magu, look at how he is rubbished. Look at how allegation of corruption push him out to that office. So what I would say, in the fight against corruption in a sane society, what we have is strong institution, not strong individual. Benjamin Netanyahu, the former prime minister of Israel, was questioned twice by Israeli police. The wife of Benjamin Netanyahu entered into plea bargain when it was obvious to her that she will be convicted based on allegation of going to grocery store to buy food items when there is money budgeted for government house. This is a society where there is rule of law. In Nigeria, what we see is the rule of man, rule of Mr. President. A situation where Mr. President will wake up from the wrong side of his bed and issue an order that is not even known to law. We are seeing a president that is even asking an attorney general of the federation to go and kickstart the process of recovering grazing route in Nigeria that is not even entrenched in the Nigerian constitution.
A grazing promulgation that was promulgated.
So what I was saying, we are not in a sane society, unfortunately, and that's why we are pained when people like Two Nigeria will sit at the comfort of their zone in UK and we do not see the reason why we criticize the government. If the government do the needful, nobody will criticize them. If you, like the government is claiming to have lifted 10.5 million Nigerians out of poverty.
Million. Yes, that was what they said.
We are, just recently, you can see the director or the man at the helm of affair of national, this is a program, national special program, telling us that they have sent people into the field to check impact of their scheme, who may have been lifted out of poverty. So the question now is, where do Mr. President get the figure of 10.5 million Nigerians when the agency responsible for even doing this program is still in the process of assessing
the impact of the program?
So that you see that it is, the government is not articulated.
Sorry if I have to come in there. To even make it more worrisome is the fact that the government is very calculative in handling of some issues using the same press. If you check radio stations in Lagos, I've been able to listen to about 7 or 8. There are people that are paid to do control damage almost in all radio stations. They are in every platform. They will call and tell you how wonderful the government is, and I wonder if we're living in different country. They will drop on radio station. There's one particular, he will call, his name is in Opaja. There's another one in Amuodofin. They will call the whole radio station in Lagos. As you're doing headlines, as you're running up with those headlines, they call and will try to manipulate and impose the idea on you. Now, the question is 10.5 million. The program, the NSIP, the Nigerian Special Insurance, Special blah, blah, blah program that they are trying to do, are still doing assessment. Just this morning, Festus Keyamo, the program he did for the poorest Nigerians,
with that 774,000.
They claim they've not paid salary. Some people said they only received 1 month salary of the 3 months. These are among the programs that the federal government
is relying on to arrive at their
figure. 10 million.
Now, that even reminds me. Let's assume, for the purpose of argument, this National Social Investment program. Let's assume you give a man who has family of 5 30,000 for 3 months. Is that sufficient to say that man has been lifted out of poverty? If that is the base for which they are determining
20, yes.
who have been lifted out of poverty. And this is somebody who perhaps have no job. And after you terminate the
3 months,
program, what is the hope of that man?
Society.
So I don't know the basis for which they are doing the assessment and determining who have been lifted out of poverty. So for me, I think a good government, what it does is you provide good environment for business to flourish. You bring in foreign investors, and your environment will determine whether foreign investors will come or not.
But before we even move towards that line, since for those who want to join us in the conversation, you can please call 09025537142. 09025537142. You're talking about a conducive environment, although we're still within the area of the probe before we move further to our next conversation soon. When there is no security in the land, we're moving towards that point very soon. Will there be any investor who wants to stay within the country? That's another question.
I think that is the bane of undevelopment and the reason foreign investors are not coming into Nigeria. Because no investor will risk his money in an environment that is not secured. And unfortunately, I don't know what is the predicament of our military. Because by our standard, they are getting the necessary fund that is needed to prosecute the war. Because you cannot tell me that you will spend $1 billion on security in 2018. This is outside the budgetary allocation to military, to police, to navy within this period. This one is special intervention. So what is actually a predicament?
Okay, sorry, Mr. Matthew. Sorry for cutting you. Let me take on the next point we want to discuss, which is part of what you're saying. According to the spokesperson of the army, in person of Brigadier Onyema Nwachu, he said categorically, guns alone can't stop security threat. Now, let me quote from his statement. He said, guns alone cannot stop the prevailing security threat across the land, the Nigerian army said on Wednesday, which was yesterday. Now, in his statement, he said, Army spokesperson Brigadier Onyema Nwachu, who dropped the hint, said the myriad of security challenges required multifaceted approach to surmount the security issues in Nigeria. Speaking while taking over as the Director of Army Public Relations at the Nigerian Army Headquarters in Abuja, Nwachu said, permit me to note here that it is an indisputable and very well established fact that the sword or gun cannot alone provide a panacea to the complex, multifaceted security challenges that characterize today's world. I must therefore make haste to say that the complex nature of these security challenges requires multidisciplinary approach and a conglomerate of stakeholders, of which the media is a very vital one. Are they coming to realization that the role of the media in discussing some of this issue and providing solution is one way to go with, or that they've identified the fact. If you look at the statement and the statement of the brigade of the general in GOC, Brigadier Ejitayo, that also said that maybe there should be a compromise in discussing with,
when he was trying to invite insurgents to a
roundtable discussion. Is there any link between these two, or the reality is maybe Brigadier Nwachukwu has said that the tactics in Northeast cannot be used in the Southwest or the Southeast?
I think General Nwachukwu was speaking from the point of, when you look at it, he was talking about it globally before he used Nigerian scenario.
Nigeria, yes, he said so.
Now, you see that what you see in the Northeast is an ideological thing. Because is it not surprising to know that when they had about 600 and something repented Boko Haram, that about 601 were Nigerians? What does that tell you? It tells you that you have a people who have been radicalized. And these people hail from Nigeria. They may have gotten that orientation from their immediate environment, from their secondary school days and all that. What it tells you is that the society have a role to play in shaping the citizens. It tells you that there is a failure in the caretaker, both at the informal and formal level of education of those people who eventually became members of Boko Haram. It tells you that you needed to draft the traditional rulers who have more obligation on the people.
I think we have a caller trying to get in touch with us. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Am I on to Mr. Samuel Samati?
Yes, you're on to the Pundits. Good evening, sir. Your name, sir. Where are you calling from, sir?
Yeah, my name is K. From the state.
You say your name is what, sir? Come again, sir.
K.
Okay, K. Okay, go on, Mr. K.
Yes, I want to make some contributions to the program based on the topics being discussed today.
Okay, so go on, sir.
So the first one, with respect to the corruption, I think the corruption fight, just like Mr. Mati has mentioned, that the courts, the way the courts are currently designed right now, I don't think that there will be any success in battling corruption. Most of the courts are overloaded, and some of our court officials actually, are not able to even stand on their own. If you look at the recent autonomy situation that has been going on, you will find out that most of the government are not willing to allow the courts to have full autonomy, because they know that if the courts have full autonomy, then they will not be able to control some of the outcomes of the results. And this, escalates down even up to the election results, and also issues that have to do with corruption cases. So, for instance, if you see the issue of abuse of power, for instance, that issue, nobody really knows, what's going to happen. In fact, there are even rumors that we may only be willing to contest for the presidency in 2023. So that's how laughable some of this issue is. So I think that in the president's broadcast, he also made mention about how the court system is set up and why they try to enact a new kind of court system, like a special court, to fast-track corruption cases. I think they need to decongest the courts, how the courts are really structured right now, if we really want to make any meaningful headway in terms of how court cases are really attended to. The second issue I wanted to talk about was with respect to the grazing routes that was mentioned. I think the president's vision about this is actually misguided, if I may use the word, because in this modern age and this age, there is a lot of technology that you can use to create a new economy with respect to all this cattle system, from ecosystem, where cows can be milk, from cow milk into storage to leather tanning to fertilizers. I think a whole new economy can be created. Instead of focusing on 93 grazing routes that may not even be graded, and that space has not been set aside by the 7.5 million. We should be thinking about creating a new economy and ecosystem.
Okay.
And then on the third point, with respect to Tiamo and the 774,000 jobs that he claimed that he created, it's so shocking to listen to Mr. Tiamo these days. The same person who fought against the old president and now being in power. I think Mr. Tiamo seems to be like a shadow of himself. He seems to be modern, defending policies that are not even that have not yielded any fruits. If you look at the three pivots that the Buhari administration ran on, which is corruption, economy, and security, the scorecard is very low. If you pull out, for us to pull out...
Mr. K. Hello, Mr. K.
Yes.
What will be your score for corruption from 2015 till date? This is 6 years of the Buhari administration.
Yes.
On a percentage of 1 to 100.
I will score the Buhari administration very low. And they take from 0 to 100, maybe just 20%.
How many percent for corruption?
20%.
20 for corruption. Okay, what about insecurity?
On the insecurity, I will score maybe 15%.
Insecurity, 15%?
Yes.
Okay, what about on the issue of, because it came in on the visit of corruption, security, and economy?
Yes. On the economy, I will score him maybe just 20%.
20, okay, thank you very much.
And the reason is not far-fetched. If you look at these three pivots that the Buhari administration ran on, they have not done well. For you to pull out people out of poverty, first and foremost, the economy must grow at least a double digit. And
Okay.
you must do that consistently for 10 years.
Okay, Mr. K, we need to just round up because we have other callers that want to call in.
Yes, definitely. In summary, what I'm saying is that there are no new jobs that have been created, because if jobs have been created, we should be feeling the impact by now in the 6 years in the administration.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your contribution. Thank you, Mr. K. Yes, Mr. Matthew, we heard him but he did mention about, there was one part that really caught my fancy, judicial autonomy, which he said would probably influence the outcome, even if...
They have always talked about this judicial autonomy, and it's part of it was a major reason judiciary.
But the governors blocked the judicial autonomy from flying of the local government autonomy.
The governors are a major problem in our political setting, because by our standard, nothing stops you from, if you budget X amount for judiciary in your state, nothing stops you from releasing it to the later to allow that arm of government to run.
I was listening to somebody who is currently in this administration that is directly or indirectly close to a governor. He said the governors, because we are within the caucus of the governors, so he was privileged to hear the conversation, have a conversation. The governor said if the federal government is fast to assent that and push it to the governor, the same federal government should be fast to sign the bill for state police and to allow states to control their resources.
No, I think the state governors, they are not being sincere.
No, he wasn't saying that the action of his boss, we were talking on a private, was justifiable. Okay. He was saying the boss said, it was a meeting within the governor and some cabinet members, that they will sign it so fast and allow it to work. If the same federal government is sincere in doing it holistically, they should send all together. State police, the autonomy of judiciary, resource control of states, all that the governors will be the first people to assent it.
What I'm saying in essence is,
So it wasn't that he was justifying the point. He was only trying to tell me that the federal government is always clever by half. Because the list, just like you said in some of your program, of what is on the exclusive list is making the federal government irresponsible and they can't function.
Let me tell you this. In fairness to the federal government, Mr. President signed an executive order recently that seeks to checkmate the states in terms of how they manage the legislative and judiciary arm of the government at the state level.
Yes. But he did not sign the one for federal level.
No. What I'm trying to say in essence is the executive order, what it sought to do is, if in the month of June, Delta State government, for instance, refuse to release the fund that is due to the judiciary and the legislative arm of government in Delta State, that in the preceding month, the accountability of the federation reserve the right to withdraw from source
from FAC
and
allocation.
Send directly to those who has a government in Delta State. As laudable as that order, the state governors conspired against Mr. President, and Mr. President could not stand their pressure. He rescinded that order, and the status quo.
No, that's where I'm driving at. That the person in question said that he that comes to equity.
No, come with clear hand.
He wasn't saying that the actions of the governors were right. He categorically said it is wrong for development. He accepted in personal and confidentiality, but he said the governors were smart enough to discover the hypocrisy that this federal structure has been maintaining from 1960.
But do you know where the governor position is wrong? Because there is a judgment that will affirm the judicial autonomy, and as it stands, as laudable as state police, as good as state police, there is no yet law that permits it. And that's why we are putting pressure on the federal government to do the needful, because it's a panacea to end the myriad of insecurity at that level. Country. So for me, I think the state governors should allow the judicial autonomy at the level.
And we'll also employ to beg the federal government to allow the state police and some other issues to also fly. The point is, in as much as the system wants to control a set of people to retain more power at the center, the governors who are sensitive to know an issue. The president did not sign more than 200 bills.
I agree with you, I'm aware.
So, in fact, left for me, I would rather say the restructuring should start from the federal.
I agree with you. I was speaking on the issue of
the legislature.
The issue of ideology. The issue raised by the spokesman of Nigerian military.
Okay.
Yes. I was at the point of drafting the traditional rulers who have more authority over the people into the fight against insurgency. Why I'm so much interested in this area is because it is something that will have enduring solution. Like I've said earlier on, that it's an ideological war. Because if you do not address it from the point of ideology, children yet unborn will grow up to be drafted into insurgency. Because it is surprising to even read recently that Mr. President said he now believes that Nigerians are the majority of Boko Haram, having been briefed by the governor of Borno State. Is it not surprising? So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say in essence is, you have a system, a situation where your citizens have taken arm against the state, and they were radicalized by your own very citizen too, in the person of Shakao. So what do you do to stop it? Some person may have been radicalized that you cannot preach to them to drop arm, but you start educating the young one from the cradle
and get them engaged,
so that they don't grow up to get enlisted into Boko Haram, into banditry and all that. So, and we have the religious institutions, the traditional institutions, these two major strategic partners
me-
have moral authority to shape
No.
these children from the cradle.
If I have to come in, looking at that part of the country, because it's a big nation, Nigeria, if we're sincere to ourselves, do you see the traditional institutions really effective in that part of the country? If we're fair to ourselves,
They are fair. Let me tell you. Yes, they have that.
No, I'm asking that. Have you seen them over time engaging their youths, engaging their citizens?
That is where the problem lies. But looking at whether the subjects regard and take their word, I happen to serve in Jigawa State. You need to see the respect they accord to their emirs.
Sorry if I have to come in again. What I'm saying is, in considering their traditional institution and that of the other part of the country, how many times have these people, their allies, their emirs, come out to condemn? How many in comparison to other part of the south?
But the problem is this. I understand the angle you are speaking from.
No, I understand. So I want to be as factual. I don't think they've done so well. It is because the insecurity has gotten to a point that they cannot bear it. Ordinarily, before now, go and read their actions of some of their youths, even within themselves and some people from other part of the country. When it comes to violence, burning, these guys have been silent not until recently. That the violence is almost consuming all of them. The respect to the traditional institutions is from the lords within them. But the traditional institution over the years, because this thing did not just start all of a sudden, have they been able to call out these people, caution them, talk when issues happen with these same youths, with other tribes within that region?
I think the reason is this. Because in most cases, they have seen that it's easy for them to micromanage the youth in the north. So once the activities of the youth is not threatening their position and their society, they say nothing.
They don't, definitely.
So I think that is a part of the problem, the reason they have allowed these children to grow without modeling them. Because I can remember that each time there is a religious crisis and they are killing people from the south, you don't see their leaders condemn it as such. So, and it is unfortunate that they have allowed these children to grow to the point where they now become a thing of concern for the country generally. That it is even threatening the sovereignty of Nigeria. For a GOC to be telling Boko Haram to come to round table, you should know that Nigerian government is not finding it easy.
Don't you think some of their actions before now is as a result of either politics or religion?
Somehow.
Now, if you read Karl Marx's postulation, has religion in that part of the world or that part of the country been used as a tool for peaceful coexistence and development? Because I was telling a friend that if it is this same Islamic religion they practice in Dubai and Saudi Arabia, it's better to practice the religion in that way.
The problem, like I've said earlier on, the problem is that the way they manage the youth in the north, it is very easy for the leaders to decide for the youth what they should do.
Don't you think education is also a critical role?
I agree with you. Education is a critical role. And because perhaps the way they want to manage them, because they know that if they get them educated, it will be difficult to micromanage them. I think that's the reason they deny most of them education. Because by our standard, it is very difficult for you to come to the southern part of the country and come to an ideology to carry arm and fight the government. It's unlikely that people will sign on to it. So that, I think, because they deliberately deny them education for purpose of micromanaging them, and it is now being counterproductive. Because we are seeing a situation where they cannot easily be radicalized, and it is now a problem for Nigeria generally.
Now, in looking at the statement of the army general, the army seems to be overwhelmed.
Of course.
So, if the army is overwhelmed and has plea bargain or engaging in a terrorist organization solved anything before, I don't think so. If you check what happened in Algeria, and some other countries that have had this kind of terrorist organization, they were taken on head to head and they were killed. These are people that believe if you fight for Islamic cause or the Boko Haram cause, when you die, you have 22 virgins. So even there was a story of a repentant Boko Haram that came back to the town, killed the father, killed the mother, and went back to meet his group. So in looking at that with the statement of the army, why wasn't the army so fast to say this, as at the time the southeastern crisis was really brewing?
But what I think is, if as a sovereign state, what you should do is exert your authority, decimate the insurgents, bring them to their knee, discourage people from signing on to it. I'm talking about kinetic approach. Then the non-kinetic approach should be start educating the children from the cradle.
But Mr. Matthew, do you see this government doing that? They spent 6 years.
It's unfortunate that they are not doing it, and this thing is in the public domain. The government know that it's the right thing to do.
Well, can I even ask another question, Mr. Matthew? Looking at the Buhari campaign and the speeches of the northern politicians before now, they categorically openly said the last administration were killing their youth.
What you are saying is not far. Even the
can't we say this Boko Haram fight is still politicized?
Even the former governor of Adamawa State, Murtala Nyako, went to America with other
northern governors, yes,
and they held a press conference where they alleged that there is a genocide against the North, the Nigerian state, under the leadership of a Jonathan.
Because he was from the south, I guess.
I'm not looking at it from that angle, because I'm looking at what do we do to survey the situation. I'm not looking at a situation where we polarize the country the more. I'm looking at a situation where whether a Buhari, whether a Jonathan, whether an Atiku, whether a Tinubu, whoever, whether a youth.
And when there is no question or agreement on a part of conversation, because some of those actions resulted in the United States of America to sell ammunition to Nigeria, as at that point
they started the law.
Yes, they said the ammunitions were used for. Now the point is, some people have speculated that there is no way a northern president will flush out away Boko Haram before Buhari came to power. No, like I have fact. There are videos. Some people came publicly and said not even the Buhari can fight Boko Haram.
But I do not believe, let me tell you this, I do not believe that a Buhari will want Boko Haram to flourish.
Well,
as much as he is not able to fight it to a standstill, I do not believe that he will want Boko Haram to flourish. Because by our standard, his government is already weakened. His government is at the receiving end. In fact, if you look at the reason, people are not even seeing some areas of
they are trying
impact
to work
of his government,
especially in terms
because of
infrastructure.
Insecurity.
Yes.
So I don't think a Buhari will be happy with what Boko Haram is.
No, he's not being happy. The question is, would there have been a political will for a northerner to go the extra mile? Check the administration of Jonathan towards the tail end, even with the support of the northern.
The issue is this: a Buhari outside the government may not be happy with the way a Jonathan was fighting Boko Haram, because generally speaking, northern youths are the members of Boko Haram. So however I look at it, if you keep Boko Haram, you are killing northern youths. I think that was the average, the reason of an average northerner.
So when let me come in. So when he now got to this extent, because these guys grow,
the reality is
it was manifest. So would you know?
The reality is staring him in the face.
Okay.
So I don't think he'll be happy that Boko Haram is gaining this strength.
No, some people we discussed at length with some other persons. Like prior to this time, I've wholeheartedly concluded that to end Boko Haram, no president, because it was a tool.
If you are telling me because of capacity, I will allude to it. But you're rich.
No, it might not be the fact that Haram to flourish, but it might be the fact that they've had an alignment based on ethnicity and religious belief. That's why you can see them coming out to beg a Boko Haram.
But let me tell you this: a Zulu the current governor of Borno State is a Muslim. You see the genuineness from him, his countenance, each time he speak, that he wants these insurgencies to stop. We all saw how he was attacked and almost
the security head were killed about.
So what I was saying, I don't think it's about Islam, because we have seen Islamic scholars, we have seen Islamic religious leaders, Islamic political leaders speak against.
But in fairness to some of the proponents, the reason why the presidency tends to be taking more of the heat is in issues of such or similar issues in other ethnic group. The same president is so fierce and straightforward in knowing the kind of words he will use and the forceful deployment of the Air Force. So in comparison of that, do you feel this northern Buhari from the north, his principle has always been the military approach, his ethnic group, and his religion? If you check his,
I agree with you.
Do you feel
because if you
that
look at,
he has the political will truly to fight this Boko Haram?
It's one thing to have political will. It's another thing to have the capacity.
Does he have the capacity
to have the strategy?
to fight
it's another
Boko
thing to
Haram?
have the expertise.
In comparison of all, does this Buhari government, a former general,
the reality has shown.
Also
the reality has shown that one, you do not have the capacity.
Okay.
Not just Buhari, Nigerian government, Nigerian sovereign state. Reality has shown that they don't have the capacity, that they do not have the strategy, that they do not have the expertise, that they do not have the technology to drive the process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matthew, because you've answered virtually most part of the question. While we move to the other headlines that have also dominated the space of the Nigerian space. Recently, the governor of Rivers State, in person of Nyesom Wike, was quoted to have said that he is set to send the anti-grazing bill to Rivers State House of Assembly.
Yes.
So now, in looking at that and in comparison to what Malami has said too prior to this time, and also the statement of the presidency in regarding to the grazing route and grazing reserve, what do you make of this? Because now it seems the southern states have already held their position and they are hell-bent on going ahead to implement that. In fact, let me quote Wike to have his statement. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has promised to give the ban on open grazing in the state a legal backing by sending the required bill to Rivers State House of Assembly. The governor at the inauguration of Isaiah Odoli Omerelu Street in Rivers State, Rivers State, said the proposed bill was in harmony with the resolution of the southern governors. He said, you cannot go to the farm anymore. Those who rear cattle, they will not allow your crop to grow. Let me say clearly now that the House of Assembly has come back. We have to submit the bill on anti-open grazing as we agreed in the Southern Governors Forum. Though he went ahead to say that Nigeria is on life support and required prayers from citizens to salvage the country. He said, since APC came into power, you can now see what Nigerians have turned into. Each day you wake up, you hear people are being killed. If you watch television and read the news in the newspaper, you will hear so number are killed or kidnapped in so state. That was the statement of Nyesom Wike. What do you make of this?
Looking at it holistically, I think I see a Malami, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, who was beclouded by sentiments, who could not rise above ethnic reasoning. Because I feel that a Malami misled Mr. President into giving that order for him to go and recover grazing route that never even existed. Because a quick check will reveal that it's in the 1965 Constitution in the northern region that there used to be 415 grazing reserves, out of which about 141 were gazetted. And you have only two in the south, Oyo and Ogun State. Now, looking at the current composition of Nigeria as a sovereignty, if you are borrowing that law, it can only apply to the states that came out of the northern protectorate. And if you look at it from that angle, it's only Katsina, Bauchi, and one other states that captured that law of grazing routes in their state as the current composition. If you even look at the Kwara state, yes, Kwara is one of them. If you look at Kwara's position currently, even their own law says that you cannot graze outside those grazing reserves. And even Kwara state law says that you cannot go about with firearm while conducting the affairs of grazing. Then looking at what is happening in the south, I think what we can is the right step in the right direction. Because when I saw that position of governors with respect to anti-open grazing, I knew that they needed to back it up with law by way of going to their respective states House of Assembly to enact a law to outlaw open grazing. So even as Wike has said that he's going to send a bill to Rivers State House of Assembly for purpose of enacting a law that will outlaw open grazing, I encourage other states in the south to follow suit.
Okay, sorry, for those of you who want to join us in the conversation, viewers at home, please, you can please call the phone number 090-255-37142. 090-255-37142. So in order to add to what you the honorable member, I think he's a senator from Osun State.
Osun State, yes.
Also, he's also a lawyer, also held a very different opinion. He said categorically that there is nothing like grazing act or grazing bill whatsoever in the 1999 constitution. So where did Malami, it becomes a questionable statement to ask, maybe the Attorney General should come out with of his own backing.
No, people have challenged him to come up with extant laws to back up his position.
Because even from what I'm seeing in Kwara and some North Central states, even the states that they said the grazing reserve passed through, the State House of Assembly have enacted law to streamline those reserves that grazing cannot hold out those reserve areas. Reserve as the reserve in the way the Malami or the presidency is looking at it. Will it solve the problem of herders?
Even in the North Central specifically, there is no there is no grazing reserve currently, because over the years this thing have been overtaken by events. If you used to have grazing reserve, farming activities, urbanization and all that have schools have taken over most of these places. I think the right thing to do is to go about ranching.
Just like some other countries.
If you look at the statement credited to Mr. President talking about grazing routes, it's a recipe for crisis. Because there is no how you go about grazing, open grazing, without having conflict with host communities.
No, Mr. Matthew, even to make it worse, I haven't read the reports of the federal, animals husbandry, blah blah blah. The lady,
okay, that director.
Lion Sholaren, yes. From the report and the counter report, some of the commentators said there were no outlined routes. Like this is the routes that clearly
it never existed.
So it never existed in practical terms that they should come up with those routes in map form.
It never existed.
It never existed. It was only a statement of promulgation, of which some that were even gazetted never even come into reality. They never even used it.
So I think
so many states now they're not even
that idea. They should embrace ranching. And it's unfortunate, even the ranching that is even the way to go. The way it stands today, no state in the south, I quote and repeat, no state in the south.
You want to even give him for ranching again?
Because of the antecedent of these headers.
No, aside the
Let me
elders,
remind you this.
okay.
For ranching or the whole communities for the purpose of making land available for ranching or whatever for grazing, no. So what I was saying, it is unfortunate that the government, through their action, through their utterances, have even made the Fulani people vulnerable to attacked by any other person. Because the way it stands, I cannot be confident to tell people in my community to allow Fulani to inhabit there, judging by the antecedent. And Mr. President have alluded to the fact that we have Fulani, foreign Fulani herdsmen who come into the country with AK-47. Here we have a government that claims to run a sovereign state. Foreign, without further delay, kickstart the process of disarming every Fulani who are roaming in the forest. And if they finish doing that, they should start a confidence building to sensitize the people, and the people should see by the action of the headers that the one we see in our regular society, that they are not criminals, they are not bandits, they are not kidnappers. Until you do that, even the ranching is not feasible, because nobody wants to see Fulani in their neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew. While we're rounding up, we have a story on one of the headlines. I think the Nation covered it, and as well as the Vanguard, that there's a lady that was arrested. I think they were 3 in number during the NSAS. Her name is Kemisola Oguniyi, I think in Ondo State. Let me quote. A pregnant 18-year-old girl, Kemisola Oguniyi, who was arrested during the NSAS protest in Ondo State capital, has given birth in prison custody. Kemisola reportedly gave birth to a baby boy on June 16. She has been in prison custody since October 24 last year. So which means she would have been pregnant as at the time she was arrested. Now let me just go down and summarize some of the things. They were accused by the security operatives that arrested them of being among those who raised the state secretariat of the All Progressive Congress. Sora was arrested alongside 3 others who were later remanded in Ondo prison custody. So they said they were charged for conspiracy to commit the following felonies to wit: arson, riotous assembly, stealing, and malicious damage. So this was what
I
came
think
up after the NSAS. It was during an army raid. The story is long.
I think what is fundamentally wrong here is not whether somebody was arrested. What is fundamentally wrong is our criminal justice system. Because somebody can be arrested by mistake of identity. Somebody can be arrested in a raid. But what happened thereafter? Because what you do in a state society is when somebody is arrested and you seek for the advice of the state a prosecutory the agents that are responsible for prosecution. Once you get advice and you charge that person to court, the needful thing to do, once you arraign that person, they will take that person plea and the prosecution starts. But the situation where you now keep somebody, the person is not under prosecution and that person is perpetually in prison, whether awaiting trial, I don't even know. But I think there's something fundamentally wrong with our criminal justice system, because there should be a system that determines how long an offense should last in court. And somebody who have been charged to court, I think there should be process of, if the offense is bailable, that person should at least enjoy bail while the prosecution process lasts. But keeping somebody in detention and that person is giving birth in prison, and if you look at the allegation, is not weighty. Because from what I understand, the lady was going to the parents to collect money for her upkeep.
Yes, that was what she said.
Along the line, she was arrested by the military, who then handed her over police for further investigation. There was nothing wrong in arresting somebody. There's nothing wrong even arraigning somebody in court.
But people pass through this a lot. I have experienced it before. The police van just parked, they moved me in, and that was all. I think we have a caller. Maybe we should just try and see how we can manage this. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Mr.
Oh, Mr. Tunanja, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Tunanja.
Troublemaker, people say, it means I look like a troublemaker right now. I'm just trying to shed light on the things we need to be seeing as Nigerians. We need to be demand specific things. Because if we don't do those things, our governments are not going to do those things for us. Like, I heard you say something about Algeria, how they dealt with this insurgency. But what you didn't say was Algeria has a lot of, in terms of numbers, security forces. Algeria has 800,000 soldiers. Nigeria has 300 for 200 million people. That is a massive imbalance. Our men are not superhumans. We are not Thanos. We have to give our men, our military, the people to go and defeat these people. And I believe that these are kind of things we should be demanding. You know what happened in Nigeria, so you are aware of the things that are happening internationally. So why are we not demanding the same things from our government? Say, give the military more men. What our youths are on the streets, they don't have jobs. Why don't give them a job at the same time secure your country? Bring foreign investment in. Twitter may have been in Nigeria right now if we have security.
Mr. Tunaja, let me ask you this, a quick one, Mr. Tunaja, if you can hear me, a quick one. In demanding these things you are looking at from the federal government, from the government, which approach do you think consider best to demand federal? I'm saying in particular because we are seeing instances where the government will count people. Government. So for you, what approach do you think Nigerians should use to draw attention of the government?
Street protest. If you want to protest on the street and say, give us more soldiers, because then you are really nailing the problem in the head. You are letting them know that we don't have enough security officers.
Hello. Were you following the last protest that just happened about 4 days ago or 5?
I saw some of them. Yeah.
So what was your conclusion about that?
I saw that they sent a lot of military officials to make sure that this stuff doesn't get out of hand.
Do you feel the press would have reported if anybody died truly? Or the press captured everything that was there?
I'm not sure they captured everything, but I'm sure Nigerians protested freely and the police acted.
Okay, you use the word freely.
Tunaja, if I can remind you, I think it was only on your state that the protest was allowed to say true. But what transpired in Abuja, as soon as the people started gathering for protest, there was police everywhere, tear gassing people without justification.
Okay.
Even in Lagos, the same thing.
I like you because you try to be fair. But look at this. If you have Boko Haram running around everywhere, you have bandits causing havoc in the country, and we don't even know the kind of forces that are inside the country, inside this country. Then you have a whole bunch of thousands of them on the street running all over the place. You can see how hard for the security officials to secure them and secure this at the same time. They will be worried. It's a nightmare when you are undermanned in the first place, and you have thousands of people on the streets. How are they supposed to? Our men don't have 9 heads. They have to be fed for our people here.
Tunanja, we need to go. We have limited time now. We need to go.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't want to take off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your contribution. Yeah, Mr. Matthew, we need to round up, I think.
Okay.
We've really done so many, but what's your final thought? Although we were not able to, maybe yes, the presidency for 2023 and the former minister, I think Dayo Adeyeye.
Maybe so, because that one is a broad
conversation, right?
Subsequently,
okay, maybe we'll probably look onto that to do justice on that tomorrow. So for viewers at home, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being part of the Pundits. My name is Samuel Efionga, and my colleague here, Mr. Matthew Oluku Bianuse. Thank you. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Thank you very much. Bye.
All right.